Higher education, where enrollment and student retention are always top of mind, has seen its unfair share of challenges during the pandemic. The good news is that here at Open, we're seeing that many universities are now investing in digital strategies to come out of the pandemic stronger than ever. My name is Ryan Pelicos. I'm a marketing coordinator at Open Digital. With me today is our sales executive, Chris Fenn, alongside our CEO, Chris Smith. Chris and Chris have a wealth of experience in discussing and solving some of the biggest digital challenges universities and colleges face across North America. They love the opportunity to share their knowledge by conducting informative seminars, teaching classes, and participating in public speaking events, just like this one. We're really lucky to have you both on board.
Thanks for having us, Ryan.
Thank you.
No worries. All right, so let's dive into this. What do you think are the top factors causing universities to make the decision to invest in new digital strategies?
Well, Ryan, I think over the last 10 to 15 years, what you've seen in higher education is a huge change in the landscape. Traditional funding models for universities have changed as government has divested itself. And so student tuition has had to take up more of a role to fund universities. We've seen new entrants into the marketplace in terms of, massive online courses and also innovative programs from universities around the world who are trying to balance, work and study for people in higher education. You've seen global trends about people traveling and seeking international education opportunities. So what you're seeing in the end is this huge competition for students right now as higher education institutions are all competing for the same essential pool of students. And what that means is that they need to be more marketing driven. And that has a direct impact on their digital transformation because they need to have a digital experience that reflects the marketing voice and the vision of the university to draw the prospective students into their pipeline.
Absolutely. And as we know, universities and colleges
Sure.
maintain huge websites with so many stakeholders involved, from department heads, administrators to marketing communication teams. What are some project management suggestions that you would provide a higher ed project lead?
What I would suggest definitely is in any kind of project like this, it's a huge change management exercise, and that involves a lot of stakeholders, internal and external. So I would not skimp on the activities in order to listen to user concerns, listen to the actual experiences users are having with your website and what your stakeholder vision is. Those people need to be part of the discussion and need to have that buy-in in an early phase in order to change the culture and the vision of the institution's public face. So it's important to take the time to get those exercises correct.
Many listeners may be surprised to learn that 71% of the world's top universities and colleges choose Drupal as their preferred content management system. Why do you guys think that Drupal is so popular in this space?
Ryan, it's amazing that that number that you shared, 71%, um, having adopted Drupal. Even I didn't think that the number was that, quite so high. Drupal, for those that aren't aware, Drupal is an open source platform. And one of the challenges we're seeing with universities, colleges, community colleges all across North America is that they're being asked to do a lot more with a lot less resources.
Mhm.
And that includes keeping up with emerging technology trends. We're seeing all sorts of new ways of communicating with audiences through wearables, through Internet of Things devices. We're also seeing the introduction of home automation like Alexa and Google Home as sources for content, and of course, our mobile devices. So the challenge that you're seeing communicators and marketers and recruiters and people within the higher ed space that have to reach an audience is that the question is really how are we going to keep up with this emerging trend or these emerging technologies, and how are we going to do so in a sustainable way? Large multi-billion-dollar private corporations, they've got no lack of resources to experiment with research and development and these other channels. But a lot of the institutes that we talk to, they don't have the same resource pool to pull from. So, back to your question about open source and why Drupal is so popular, I do think one of the most important factors to remember is that open source is driven by a community. There's no licensing fee. Anyone can download Drupal and run it today and have a fully operating website by the end of the day. And the most important part is because that community is always forward looking, you essentially have thousands of developers worldwide that are building for you at no cost integrations with Alexa, integration with Google Home. They're building Drupal VR apps now, or VR or augmented reality that's driven by Drupal. So I guess what I'm getting at here is that I believe that open source is a very sustainable model for innovation and for technology that doesn't, break the bank, and in a way that's very, it makes it a great model for institutions and higher ed.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So, what are some lessons learned from working in the higher education space?
No, Ryan, I learned a lesson just the other day, actually.
Convenient, very convenient.
It was great. I wanted to share it with you. So, working with another university, often when we're working with universities and colleges, we're often asked how it is that we can help introduce digital tools and a digital strategy that will improve student recruitment. How do we get more prospective students to put their name forward and to apply, whether that be domestic students, within Canada or the US, or international students? And often a lot of our projects, when we're really focused on recruitment, we're looking at things like search engine optimization, and we're looking at findability of content, and really designing a digital property that speaks to the website visitor. But I was challenged the other day by a client, and that client said, Chris, it's not just about lead generation. It's not just about recruitment. As great as that is, we also have to make sure that the people that are applying for our university are qualified. And the example that the client gave is, we're an arts university. We have only specific programs within a very small range or a niche. And in this case, they said, more is not always more applicants is not always a good thing. What we're trying to do is we're not just looking for a broader pool, but we want to attract applicants that have good alignment with the programs, with the resources and the support services that we offer as a university. And so I guess one of the lessons learned that I had is that when it comes to that digital property, it's not always just about driving leads. It's not always about recruitment, but it's also about making sure that people are able to fully understand what the university or the institute offers, that they're able to imagine themselves on campus and determine whether or not there are any programs that are a good fit for them. So it's really about allowing the website visitor to kind of qualify, if you will, before hitting the application button. And that's something that we have to bring back into Open now as part of our digital strategy for our higher ed clients and our future clients as well.
That's a really interesting take on it. That's something that I never would have thought as well. So that's really great. You got that information. So, what was one of the most fun or innovative approaches that you have seen?
Well, we've seen a lot among some of the clients that we've worked with. And, as we know, COVID has had a huge impact on higher education. Moving a lot of courses online, campuses being closed has forced a lot of acceleration in digital transformation. And I talked earlier about this need for recruitment and this competition for students. And one of the things, of course, that's really key for higher education is to be able to connect emotionally with students and prospective students, to be able to, so that they can see their future within the culture of the university. And so one of the approaches I saw that was quite innovative was drawing together technology and sense of belonging. Was a university that actually sent out a customized link to every applicant who had been accepted. Obviously, students often apply for multiple universities at the same time, and then based on their acceptance, they'll choose the university they want to go to. And this university sent out a customized link where they had created a landing page for each student that was personalized based on the feedback that they had received on the students' applications. So to give you an example, if the student had listed interests around sports or achievements in certain academic fields or certain extracurricular activities, the landing page would highlight resources and connections that would connect them to the communities at the university that offer those things. So not just a customized approach to their academics in terms of course selection and what they could offer, but also life in the university in terms of connecting with student groups, connecting with campus sports activities, to really give them a sense that they were coming to a community, not just going to an institution. And I think that they've seen some really good impacts in terms of the number of acceptance among those people in that program that received that link, have a much higher rate of accepting to go to that university than would otherwise be seen. And that's a really great approach in terms of marrying the technology to be able to create these custom pages through the technology processes, but also be able to create emotional connection through that.
Mhm.
Wow, that's an incredible advancement in personalization. I wish I had that when I was in college. Holy cow. So lastly, if you could give anyone considering redesigning their higher education website, what would be one piece of advice that you would give?
I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier in terms of, I think that the biggest piece of advice is that, doing a digital, let's say a digital web redesign project is not just a self-contained project. It's really moving an organization to a culture of innovation and a culture of outreach rather than just being kind of a one-off project. So what you want to think about is kind of that you're building a life cycle to be able to enter into, where you're going to be constantly innovating on your digital experience. So traditionally, universities would think of a website as a once every 5-year project. They would build a new experience, and then after 5 to 7 years, it would start to look out of date. People would become frustrated. Let's do another project. We'll just redesign it and make it look more up to date. That's not really the model that's going to work today. You want to create a model where you're getting into a culture of constant optimization and improvement of your site. So you want to start by building that foundation. So the piece of advice I would give, think about this not in sort of a 5-year chunk, but what kind of team culture and governance are you going to create that's going to empower people to test and innovate and try new things and adopt new technologies? And what are the technologies you need to be able to achieve that, respecting what Chris Smith was saying earlier about the resource constraints of universities?
Yeah, and I'm going to add to what Chris said there and say that part of that culture is the stakeholder engagement. Having the stakeholders within the organization, the faculty, and the external stakeholders, whether it be alumni or media or donors or whoever it might be, but having that level of engagement before starting a project and then maintaining it all the way throughout could make your project a lot more successful and a lot more future proof. Being able to reach out to the stakeholders, asking them their advice, how can this product or how can this digital experience be better served for you is going to go a long way. Collecting their feedback as users of the system on a daily basis is going to help shape that product, narrow our focus down to specifically the areas that give the highest return on investment. And also, let's not forget that for many universities and colleges, we're not talking about one website here. We're talking sometimes in cases 300, 600, or 900 websites that all need to be, digitally transformed or modernized and improved. And when you're, redirecting a ship of that size, you typically need everyone rowing in the same direction. And so stakeholder engagement and getting buy-in from everyone involved early on before even, starting that design process or that discovery process, or certainly well before starting development, is going to be really key to the success and creating a great, effective, long-lasting product.